August 1934, Enfield Lock, North London. A committee of British Army officers gathered around a firing range to witness something that would change infantry warfare forever. 2 machine guns sat on their bipods, ready for the most grueling test the Small Arms Committee had ever devised. 50,000 rounds, continuous fire until something broke. One gun was British, the Vickers-Berthier, a promising domestic contender. The other was Czechoslovakian, designed by a man named Václav Holek in the city of Brno. By the end of the endurance firing, the Czech pattern gun was still running clean enough to win the recommendation. When the smoke cleared, the British Army had made its decision. They would adopt a foreign design, modify it at Enfield, and create a weapon that soldiers would come to love more than any other. They called it the Bren, a name forged from Brno and Enfield. And within 6 years, German soldiers would be stripping them from British corpses and captured supply depots, because even the enemy recognised what British engineers had perfected. This is the story of the machine gun that looked clumsy, fired slowly, and became the most beloved infantry weapon of the Second World War. The problem facing British infantry in the 1930s was brutally simple. The Lewis gun, their standard light machine gun since the Great War, was obsolete. It weighed over 12 kilograms, used awkward pan magazines and jammed constantly in mud and sand. British soldiers needed something lighter, more reliable, and accurate enough to support infantry sections across the vast distances of the Empire. The Germans had already solved their version of this problem. Their MG-34 fired at 900 rounds per minute, a terrifying rate that would later inspire the even faster MG-42. German doctrine built entire squads around feeding the machine gun, with riflemen existing primarily to carry ammunition and protect the gunner. The MG-34 was a superb weapon, but it consumed ammunition at a rate that only German logistics, in theory, could sustain. British doctrine demanded something different. The Empire stretched across deserts, jungles, and frozen mountains. Supply lines could extend for thousands of miles. British infantry needed a weapon that was accurate enough to hit specific targets, rather than simply saturating an area with lead. They needed a weapon that conserved ammunition while remaining lethal. They needed a weapon that one man could carry and operate, supported by a single assistant, rather than requiring a dedicated 3-man crew. When Václav Holek's ZB family of light machine guns arrived for British trials in the early 1930s, they outperformed the competition consistently. The gas-operated mechanism proved remarkably reliable. The quick change barrel allowed sustained fire without overheating. The top-mounted curved magazine, which looked strange to officers accustomed to bottom-feeding weapons, actually allowed the gunner to fire from a lower prone position, while the assistant reloaded without disturbing the sight picture. The British did not simply adopt the Czech design, they improved it, converting from the metric 7.92mm Mauser cartridge to the rimmed .303 British round required extensive modification. The magazine's distinctive banana curve exists because the rimmed cartridge would otherwise cause rim lock failures, where one round catches behind another. Engineers at Enfield shortened the gas tube to address fouling from British cordite propellant. They added a dual buffer spring system in the buttstock, one spring for the butt plate and another for the piston return, that absorbed recoil so effectively that a skilled gunner could fire 5-round bursts with groupings comparable to 5 individual rifle shots. According to trials reports from the Royal Small Arms Factory, the completed weapon weighed 22 pounds empty, measured 45.5 inches in overall length, and achieved a muzzle velocity of 744 meters per second. The cyclic rate of 480 to 540 rounds per minute seemed slow compared to German weapons. That was intentional. Every round had to count. Production began at Enfield in September 1937. By the time war broke out 2 years later, over 30,000 Brens had been issued to the British Expeditionary Force. The weapon was about to face its first real test. Now, before we get into how the Bren performed in combat, if you are enjoying this deep dive into British engineering, consider subscribing. It takes a second, costs nothing, and helps the channel grow. Right, back to 1940. The fall of France was a catastrophe for British infantry weapons. When the evacuation from Dunkirk ended in June 1940, only about 2,300 of those 30,000 Brens returned to Britain. The rest were lost, destroyed, or fell into German hands. Britain faced potential invasion with barely 4,000 working light machine guns. The Wehrmacht designated captured Brens as the 7.7mm Leichtes MG138, with the suffix E denoting English origin. This followed their standard Beutewaffen system for cataloguing foreign equipment. German forces issued captured Brens primarily to occupation troops, military police, and anti-partisan formations rather than frontline combat units. They were useful where .303 ammunition supply could be maintained, mostly in second-line roles. The Norfolk Tank Museum records that German forces not only used the Bren as a frontline weapon, but also valued it highly as an occupation gun. However, claims that Germans specifically prioritized Bren recovery above other captured weapons lack strong documentary evidence. The Wehrmacht systematically captured and catalogued all useful equipment. The Bren was valuable, but no surviving German orders or intelligence reports indicate special preference for it over their own MG-34. What happened next demonstrated British industrial capacity at its finest. The original Mark I required sophisticated machining that limited production speed. Engineers developed the Mark II with simplified manufacturing, reducing costs by 20 to 25% while maintaining combat effectiveness. Production expanded across 4 continents. The Monotype Group Consortium began manufacturing in September 1941, eventually producing over 72,000 guns. John Inglis and Company in Toronto, Canada, manufactured 186,000 units, representing 60% of global Bren output by 1943. Lithgow Small Arms Factory in Australia produced over 17,000 guns. Ishapur Arsenal in India began production in 1942 and would continue for decades. By 1943, British factories were producing 1,000 Brens per week. The crisis had become a triumph of organisation. Combat accounts from veterans consistently praised the Bren's reliability and accuracy. Lieutenant Jimmy Langley of the 2nd Coldstream Guards recorded in his memoir, Fight Another Day, how his unit used Brens to devastating effect during the Dunkirk perimeter defence. He wrote that when Germans set up a machine gun in a damaged cottage across a canal, his men saw it and blasted them away with a Bren gun before they could fire. The fighting was so intense that in one Bren gun the firing pin had melted, rendering it useless. At Newport on May 31, 1940, the situation grew so desperate that 2 British battalion commanders manned a Bren themselves, with one colonel firing and the other loading. Bren gunners earned the Victoria Cross more than once, because the weapon let one man hold a line longer than anyone expected. Rifleman Shurbahadur Thapa of the 9th Gurkha Rifles won his posthumously at the Battle of San Marino in September 1944. His citation records that by the intensity and accuracy of the fire which he could bring to bear only from the crest, this isolated Gurkha Bren gunner silenced several enemy machine guns and checked a number of Germans who were trying to infiltrate onto the ridge. Corporal Thomas Peck Hunter of 43 Royal Marine Commando charged 200 yards of open ground at Lake Kamakio in April 1945, firing his Bren from the hip. His citation notes that the skill and accuracy with which he used his Bren gun is proved by the way he demoralized the enemy. 6 Germans surrendered to him before he was killed. Desert conditions in North Africa tested the weapon's reliability. The Bren jammed if not kept meticulously clean of sand, but its 4-position adjustable gas regulator allowed operators to compensate. Smallest gas flow for hot desert conditions, largest for cold environments. When fouling caused stoppages, the operator simply turned the regulator to feed more gas to the piston. Veterans claimed that all problems with the Bren could simply be cleared by hitting the gun, turning the regulator, or doing both. The Mark III variant, standardized in July 1944, addressed jungle warfare requirements specifically. Weighing only 19 pounds and 5 ounces with a shortened 22¼ barrel, it shed 3 pounds from the original Mark I. Commonwealth soldiers fighting in Burma appreciated that the heavy .303 rounds penetrated jungle vegetation that stopped lighter calibers. The Bren became the standard section weapon across every theatre, from the frozen fjords of Norway to the sweltering islands of the Pacific. Unit allocations standardized at 1 Bren per infantry section of 8 to 10 men. An infantry platoon fielded 3 Brens plus a 2-inch mortar. The carrier platoon in each battalion mounted 13 universal carriers, each equipped with a Bren for mobile firepower. By the end of the war, a British infantry division fielded over 1,200 Brens. An armoured division carried nearly 1,400. Spare magazines were distributed through the section, so the gun team never ran short of ammunition. Author Neil Grant, who interviewed numerous Bren veterans for his book The Bren Gun, noted a consistent reaction. Almost all regarded it as a reliable and effective weapon, and it was striking that when discussing the Bren with veterans who had used it, their first response was almost always the same: a nostalgic smile and the words "it was a great gun," the old Bren, or something similar. There exists a persistent legend that the Bren was too bloody accurate for suppressive fire. The most cited source is an anecdote from Dunkirk where a chief petty officer reportedly advised a civilian boat owner to get a Lewis gun instead because Brens are too bloody accurate. Stories circulated that gunners deliberately used worn barrels to broaden the cone of fire. Modern testing does not support this claim. Ian McCollum of Forgotten Weapons calls it a gun myth, noting that live fire demonstrations contradict it. Matt Moss of the Armourer's Bench conducted controlled testing, comparing the Bren to a dedicated sniper rifle, using British Army methodology. The results demonstrated the Bren was not more accurate than a sniper rifle. Veterans who actually fired the weapon dispute the claim. Only people who have never fired a light machine gun would ever say it was too accurate. The kernel of truth is that the Bren was accurate for a light machine gun. This was a virtue, not a problem. Standard training taught gunners to fire 4 to 5 round bursts and manually shift aim between bursts, a universal light machine gun technique, not compensation for excessive accuracy. Comparing the Bren to contemporary weapons reveals the genius of British design philosophy. The German MG-42 fired at 1,200 to 1,500 rounds per minute, earning nicknames like Hitler's buzzsaw. Yet despite this dramatic difference, practical sustained rates were similar at approximately 100 to 150 rounds per minute due to barrel changes and reloading. The MG-42's extreme rate created devastating psychological effect, but consumed ammunition voraciously. A 50-round belt could empty in 2.5 seconds of continuous fire. Against the American M1918 BAR, the Bren held significant advantages, 30-round versus 20-round magazine capacity, and crucially, a quick change barrel that the BAR lacked entirely. The BAR's fixed barrel could overheat during prolonged fire, and required depot-level replacement rather than field change. The BAR was trialled in Britain during the interwar years, but the army ultimately wanted a true light machine gun with a quick change barrel, and the Czech design delivered exactly that. The Soviet DP-28 offered 47 round-pan magazine capacity, but with awkward reload times and a design optimized for mass production rather than precision. The Soviets needed a weapon that conscript armies with limited training could operate effectively. The Bren represented a different philosophy entirely, precision engineering for professional soldiers expected to make every round count. British doctrine favoured accuracy over volume for reasons rooted in imperial experience. Colonial warfare meant fighting dispersed enemies at extended ranges. Extended supply lines across a global empire made ammunition conservation essential. A tradition of rifleman marksmanship, dating back through the Napoleonic Wars, emphasized precision shooting. The Bren did not need to dominate firefights alone. It provided accurate supporting fire while the rifle group maneuvered. German squads existed to serve their machine gun. British sections used the Bren to serve the section's tactical objectives. Effective range from the bipod reached 600 yards. Mounted on a tripod, the Bren could engage targets at 2,000 yards with plunging fire. The weapon could fill both the precision and suppression roles depending on the tactical situation, a flexibility that belt-fed guns optimized purely for volume could not match. The Bren's service life extended decades beyond the Second World War. British and Commonwealth forces carried Brens through the Korean War, where they faced Chinese-built ZB-type guns, an ironic encounter of the same design family. During the Malayan emergency, the Bren's portability proved valuable in jungle conditions where heavier belt-fed weapons were impractical. Soldiers operating in 12-man patrols for weeks at a time appreciated a weapon they could carry without exhaustion. Conversion to 7.62mm NATO produced the L4 series beginning in the mid-1950s. The new cartridge's rimless design allowed a straighter magazine profile. Approximately 16,000 L4 guns were manufactured or converted. The chrome-lined barrel of the L4A4 variant resisted wear and corrosion better than earlier versions. Remarkably, the L4 could accept 20-round magazines from the L1A1 self-loading rifle, providing emergency ammunition compatibility across the section. During the Falklands War in 1982, 40 Commando Royal Marines carried one L4A4 per section, alongside the heavier L7 general-purpose machine gun. The lighter Bren was preferred by soldiers who yomped across East Falkland from San Carlos to Port Stanley. When you're carrying everything you need to fight and survive across boggy moorland in freezing rain, 3 kilograms of weight savings matters enormously. SAS troops used both caliber variants for firing on fixed lines during observation post duties. Royal Navy ships, including HMS Invincible, mounted L4s as last-ditch anti-aircraft weapons. The L4 remained in British service until the 1991 Gulf War. its final operational deployment with British forces. The Irish Defence Forces retained the Bren until 2006, famously using them during the siege of Jadotville in 1961, when 155 Irish soldiers held off over 3,000 Katangese attackers. Most remarkably, India continued manufacturing the Bren at Ishapur until 2012, designating it Gun Machine 7.62mm 1B. This meant the design achieved 75 years of continuous production from 1937, a record few infantry weapons have matched. That curved magazine that everyone thought looked wrong. That slow rate of fire that seemed inadequate against German buzzsaw guns. That top-mounted feed system that blocked the sightline. Every apparent flaw was actually a solution to a real problem. The curve prevented rimlock. The slower rate conserved ammunition across Imperial supply lines. The top feed allowed prone firing and gravity-assisted feeding. German soldiers took Brens from battlefields because they recognized quality engineering when they captured it, but they never stopped using their own MG-34s and 42s as primary weapons, because German doctrine required volume of fire that the Bren was never designed to provide. The Bren was not better than the MG-42. It was better suited to British requirements, and that distinction matters. The veterans who carried the Bren across North Africa, through the jungles of Burma, up the beaches of Normandy, and into the frozen hills of Korea did not love it because marketing told them to. They loved it because when they pulled the trigger, it fired. When they needed accuracy, it delivered. When the barrel overheated, they changed it in seconds. When sand or mud fouled the mechanism, a turn of the gas regulator cleared it. British engineering was not about building the fastest or the most powerful weapon. It was about building the right weapon for British soldiers, fighting British wars across British distances. The Bren was that weapon. 75 years of service proves it. From the beaches of Dunkirk to the mountains of Korea, from the jungles of Malaya to the freezing windswept hills of the Falklands, the Bren performed. The gun that looked clumsy became the gun that never let them down.